Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So I'm about ready to head out for the day, but before I do, I wanted to check in around goal setting. So I announced some big goals in my last video. So I'm going to be writing 2 books at the same time, one fiction, one nonfiction. But that got me thinking about goal setting in general. And I've had some questions through either comments or through DMs about goal setting and how I set goals and what, do I use a specific process? So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. So we're going to chat here in the office, and then I'm going to head out and I'm going to take you guys with me and we'll just talk, and I'll go over some things that I do when I think about setting goals and the pre-work that I do, because most people make a huge mistake when they set goals. But before I dive into the specifics of this video, this would be an awesome time if you could subscribe to my channel. That way you're up to date with what's going on, and it really helps me out. I appreciate it. So most of us have some sort of bigger vision for our life, and we want to take the steps to accomplish this, to get there, but we don't know how, we don't know where to start, or once we do start, we quickly find ourselves lost and then we drop out. Now, we've all read self-development books. Atomic Habits is a great one. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is a great one. And Getting Things Done. These are all super, super famous books. And while those books are incredible, awesome, I've learned a lot from them and I recommend them. But most people read these and then they take away the wrong lessons. They take away the wrong methods. They skip really important steps. I know, because that's exactly what I did when I first read these years ago. Most people jump straight to creating the goal itself. They create the goal and then they break down the steps or activities that need to happen in order to begin the work for that goal. And this sounds completely logical. I've done it myself. Like I said, after reading, these great famous books, I did all these things myself. But by skipping the fundamental steps that I'm going to share in this video that we're going to talk about, you set yourself up for frustration at the minimum, or even ego-crushing complete failure at the extreme. So we're going to work together to avoid this. All right, I'm out of the house. So where do we begin with setting goals? So first, let me bore you with a story. So I don't talk about my job in any of my social platforms, as I want to keep these 2 areas of my life completely separate. But for sake of the story, I will just share that my role at work is a leader of a large team, let's say multiple hundreds of people. And most of my day-to-day work is not only running the financial and services side of the business, but also, and more important, I coach and develop my team toward their career goals. So anyhow, one day I'm sitting with one of my managers and he tells me that his career goal is to step up to the next level, to get promoted, which, this is super normal. I hear a variation of this goal nearly every week. But what was different this time is that when he said it, I couldn't picture him at the next level. And not because he wasn't smart or talented, but because I'd never seen much drive and career ambition from him. He did a good job, but he did only what was required, no more, no less. And I'm not sure what made me ask him this, but I said, what is the most important thing in your life? And this guy thought about it for a few beats, and then he responded, spending time with my 7-year-old son. Now, as a parent myself, I knew this feeling and resonated with this priority 100%. I then asked him, so how might that time with your son change if you get promoted? And he began to think about it. And as he peered inward, kind of deeply contemplating the job requirements at the next level, I noticed his expressions and his body language changing. He was realizing something that I had already seen in him. So then I said to him, work-life balance is one of your values. I've known you for years and this has never changed. I think it's awesome, in fact. But as I think you just realized, the next level is a whole different world when it comes to time commitment. And then I said, look, we can debate if that is right or wrong, but as of now, that's the reality of the job. After he left my office, I sat back and was just dumbfounded because I had never thought about that for myself. And I don't know where it came from. It just came out of the blue. I had climbed the career ladder. I took every promotion on offer and I moved all over the world chasing the next opportunity. I had sacrificed my own time with my loved ones, chasing the dollar and the next title. So then I started thinking why did I do this? Well, mostly because I didn't know I could refuse. To be totally honest, I was raised to take each opportunity that comes my way, to work smarter, work harder. And I did all of that in the service of growing my career and, if I'm honest, my bank account. But somewhere, somehow, lurking in the back of my brain, I had stumbled upon the importance of aligning my goals to what I valued in my life. And I shared that with this manager, but I had never shared it with myself. Hello. So that's the first lesson in this video, the importance of understanding your values. If your goals are not aligned to your values, you will fail. Maybe not right away, it could take years, but you will eventually come to this realization and you'll just feel empty. All that striving for something you didn't really even want. So a quote I love from the book and the film Fight Club is, "We buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't even like." And we do this because of our lifestyle. Our goals, our ambitions, they're just not aligned with what we actually value. It took me a really, really, really long time for me to realize this. So you ask, Michael, well, what do we do? We're gonna get to that. So each year, the last week of December, I have a ritual where I sit down and I reread my journal from that year. I look for themes and reoccurring insights. I review the goals I had set the year before and how I did. Did I accomplish them or not? Why? And I also begin to draft goals for the coming new year. But the most important part, the most important thing I do that week before the drafting of the new goal is I perform a values inventory and ranking. So even though our core values in life don't shift that much in the short term, I find doing this exercise yearly allows me to just keep it front of mind. What are the things that I hold dear? What are the things that are most important to me? So yes, it doesn't change much year to year, your values, but they do change decade to decade. So to do this values inventory and ranking is super simple. So just get on your search engine of choice and type in values list or values study, and you'll get literally hundreds of links that will pop up. I'm not going to recommend any because I try to use a new one each year, but they're all basically the same, or they're very similar. So it's basically just a list of values like love, financial security, family, health, adventure, spirituality, honesty, self-development, on and on and on and on. So I save the list as a PDF on my iPad, and I just get out my Apple Pencil and I just start circling any of the words that seem to resonate with me. I don't edit at this stage, I'm just circle, 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 anything that I feel connected to. So then after that, I typically will have, 30 to 40 values circled. And then what I do is that I force myself to cut again, and I try to get it down to 10. And then once I have those 10, I rank them, I force rank them 1 to 10. Now, these are my top 10, so they're all important, but I force myself to make really tough decisions on this. Which ones are more important to me than any of the rest? So then, and only then, when I've got my top 10 list, I take a look at the top 3 to 5 values, and that's where I decide to set my goals, is around those values. So I reflect, I think about the things I want to do, the things I want to accomplish, and then I ask myself, does that goal, how does it connect with one of these top 3 to 5 things? They must align with one of my values. So if yes, it does align with one of my values, then it becomes a goal. And I follow the steps outlined in great books, like I said before, Atomic Habits, Get Things Done, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, or whatever system that I'm personally geeking out on that year. And currently that book is the 12-week year. This is awesome. They also make one called the 12-week year for writers. Check that out if you are a writer like myself. And then I do one more thing, and this is gonna be the second major point in this video, and it's something that most people do not do. Let's get to that now. All right, back to the house after taking a walk. It looked like it was going to rain, so I didn't want to be out there too much with all my camera gear filming in the rain. So back in the home office, and we're going to talk about the other really important thing that I think most people miss is that they don't put their goal and the sub actions and activities onto their calendar. So I physically write each step, each action, each activity, whatever is needed to achieve my goal on my calendar. And it's at specific time, on specific days, I'm gonna do X, Y, or Z. Whatever that action is, whatever I've determined once I've built my goal, first I make sure that it aligns with my values as we already discussed. But then once I say, yep, checks, align with my values, then that's when I start writing my goals. And then once I have the goals written down, using the SMART model, specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound, then I gotta make sure that I put it on my calendar, because if it's not prioritized on my calendar, I'm not gonna do it. I can't tell you how many of my employees or just even some people in my life who have told me about their goals, and then I've asked to see their calendar, and I don't see anything about their goals on their calendar. There might be birthdays, there might be hair appointments, there might be even their work schedule, but there's nothing about their big goal, the thing that they're trying to strive for. It's not on their calendar. So if this is some super important, really big thing that you want to accomplish in your life, you have to plan the time ahead of time. And I know this sounds obvious, but I struggled with this. I still struggle with it, to be quite honest. But I calendarize everything. And I've been doing this for about 8 years or so, 8 or 9 years, since I moved to China. I made a conscious effort as I transferred with my job to do things differently, because while I was successful, in the US with the company that I'm still with, I had some opportunities. I had some things that I really wanted to dial in when I got this kind of a restart. I was able to come to China and continue my role, continue my job with the same company, but in a totally new environment. And I didn't know anybody, and I was rebuilding relationships for the first time. And part of that was to be better at priority setting, time management, just getting stuff done, basically. So yeah, back to my practices. So I calendarize everything in my life. I have my gym calendarized. I have when I make my coffee, when I eat my breakfast, when I have dinner with the family. It's all built on my calendar. I even have time set aside on my calendar for sleep. Now, I don't always do all the things that are on my calendar. Life gets in the way, certain things come up. I'm flexible. I'm not a slave to my calendar. However, I have found that if it's not there, then I certainly won't do it. So I'm flexible, but it's there, it's staring me in the face. And then the next thing I do, and again, this is something that I don't see people do very often, even if they have put it on their calendar, is that they don't set notification reminders. So your calendar is only as good as if you look at it. Basically, if it's important to you, put it on your calendar and set notifications. I get notifications all the time beeping on my Apple Watch telling me to get to the next thing, whatever that might be. Like, hey, Michael, film this damn video that you've been procrastinating on. All right, so now you're saying, okay, Michael, so I've listened to everything that you've said, and I made sure that my values aligned with my goals. And now I've even taken the next step that you suggested, and you put those
action items, those sub action items that will help you accomplish the goal on your calendar, right? But I'm not motivated to do any of it. So where does the motivation come from? All right, so now we're going to talk about motivation. And a great book on this topic is The Motivation Myth by Jeff Hayden. So I read this a couple years ago, and what Hayden does really well is that he lays bare the assumption that it takes motivation to do hard things, to achieve big goals. So in this book, he introduces compelling scientific brain research that, after reading it, I realized it's actually totally different than the way I thought. You don't need motivation to get started. In fact, motivation comes after you've begun to do the work. Motivation comes from small initial wins along the continuum that you've set of action steps to achieve your goal. Many of us lay on the couch, surfing our phones, scrolling, doom scrolling, watching TikTok, watching Instagram, whatever, and we wait for some magical force to make us feel like whatever, going to the gym or saving money, or like me, sitting down and writing my book. So what I hated about this book is that it completely broke my notions of how I conducted myself. Meaning, I was that guy sitting on the couch waiting for motivation to blow through the window and whisk me down to the gym. But it just doesn't work like that. It just physically, scientifically does not work like that. So yes, I quite frankly despise going to the gym. And the first 3 weeks were extremely painful. But now it's 6 weeks on, and I'm, in a way, I kind of crave it. I'm still not in love with it. I will probably never be a total gym head, but, it's not as painful as it was. Now I feel motivated because I started taking the actions. So, one more piece of really bad news. There's no shortcut around this. You're gonna have to go through this part, this uncomfortable, this painful part of just starting until the motivation kicks in. So what are you waiting for? What are we waiting for? We might as well just start because we're gonna have to go through this phase anyways. We might as well get it over with. All right, so now some people have asked me, so how does motivation and inspiration differ? So to me, inspiration and motivation are related, but they're different in really one key way. Inspiration is about making yourself or people feel a certain way. It's not necessarily tied to action. Motivation is a process that assumes eventual action. So you can be inspired by an emotional story, by a great speech, by a great movie, but you may never be called to action. But motivation assumes some sort of either compulsion or coercion toward eventual action. Inspiration is more fluffy and fleeting, and it may come and go. That's not to say that it's not important. I love inspirational stories. I love inspirational books. In fact, when I'm starting a big project, what I do is I go and I pull all of the books from people who have done maybe a similar thing who I look up to, or who are, one of my heroes, or somebody I admire, or I just love their work. Yeah, and if you're curious, these books include Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, the classic, The Obvious Choice, On Writing by Stephen King. And then I have 3 titles by Stephen Pressfield. So Do the Work, the classic, probably my favorite. Every artist should read this, The War of Art. And then Turning Pro, all by Stephen Pressfield. And then I've got Consider This by Chuck Palahniuk, who is the author of Fight Club that I referenced earlier. And definitely one of the best writing instruction books on the market. Here we go, get it to focus here. A Swim in a Pond in the Rain by George Saunders. Yeah, so what I'll do is I will revisit those. I'll probably start off with Stephen Pressfield because the books are super small and they are really designed for inspiration and mindset. So I'll start with probably some Stephen Pressfield, maybe then I'll read Big Magic again. I'll probably just read a few chapters from George Saunders and Chuck Palahniuk, because those are more dense books. Those are more kind of writing instruction in a sense. But yeah, that's how I use inspiration, is that I don't necessarily, reflect on it every day or need it every single day, because that's where the motivation is. Your small wins that you've had, that's where the motivation kicks in, and kind of pushes you down the line. But it's natural to lose steam. And when I lose steam, when my motivation has maybe just become maybe a boring routine at that point, I need a pick me up. I need something to re-inspire me, to get me motivated in a sense through inspiration, because I don't know, we all want to be reminded why we're doing this big thing, because it's painful. Big goals are scary and painful. They challenge us. In some ways, we may even be trying to reinvent ourselves, or, as I mentioned, atomic habits at the beginning of this video, we might be completely changing our identity, right? And that's something that the author of that book, I don't remember his name now. What's his name? Sorry. I can't believe I forgot his name. James Clear. James Clear. Super famous. Guy sold millions of copies of that book. It's a really good book. You should read it. But what he talks about is that, the easiest way to, get into habits and really change your life and accomplish your goals is to just change your identity, right? So instead of saying, I want to run a marathon, you would say something like, I'm a runner. And then you can fill in the blanks of what that definition means to you. But by starting and saying, I'm somebody who, I don't drink, let's just say, right? I don't drink anymore. I'm not a drinker. Instead of saying, I want to cut back on drinking, his argument is that if you change your identity, it's more effective.
So yeah, if you like to listen to a middle-aged guy who has pretty much nothing in life figured out, but who is actively trying to figure it out and documenting that journey, then this is the channel for you.